It was supposed to be a night of laughter and lights, but it ended in heartbreak. A little girl vanished at the town carnival, leaving behind only a single shoe and a father's endless grief. For 10 years, her face haunted him, until one day he saw it again. Not in a dream, but on a billboard, smiling down at him like a ghost from the past. The carnival had come to town, bringing with it the smell of popcorn, the sound of laughter, and the glow of 1,000 twinkling lights. It was the highlight of the year for the small town of Maplewood, a place where life moved slowly and excitement was rare. Families flocked to the fairgrounds, eager to lose themselves in the magic of the night. For Daniel Carter, it was a chance to spend time with his 7-year-old daughter, Emily. She had been begging him to take her ever since the first posters went up around town. "Please, Daddy," she had said, her big brown eyes wide with excitement. "I want to ride the Ferris wheel." Daniel couldn't say no to her. Emily was his world, the light that had kept him going after her mother passed away 2 years earlier. He had promised himself he would give her the happiest childhood he could, even if it meant facing the crowds and noise he usually avoided. The night was perfect. The air was cool but not cold, and the sky above was clear, the stars barely visible against the glow of the carnival lights. Daniel held Emily's hand tightly as they wandered through the fairgrounds, her laughter ringing out as she pointed at the games and rides. "Can we get cotton candy?" she asked, tugging on his arm. "Of course," Daniel said, smiling. He bought her a pink cloud of spun sugar, and she giggled as it stuck to her fingers. They rode the carousel, played a few games, and even won a small stuffed bear that Emily clutched tightly to her chest. But the highlight of the night was the Ferris wheel. As they reached the top, Emily gasped, her face lighting up as she looked out over the carnival. "It's so pretty, Daddy," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Daniel smiled, his heart full. "It is, sweetheart." When the ride ended, Emily jumped off the seat, her energy boundless. "Can we go to the funhouse next?" she asked, pointing to the brightly lit building with its maze of mirrors and twisting corridors. Daniel hesitated. The funhouse was crowded, and he wasn't a fan of tight spaces, but Emily's excitement was contagious. "All right," he said, "but stay close to me, okay?" Emily nodded, her pigtails bouncing as she ran ahead. Daniel followed, keeping her in his sight as they entered the funhouse. The air inside was cool and filled with the sound of laughter and footsteps echoing off the mirrored walls. "Emily, wait for me," Daniel called, his voice light but firm. "I'm right here, Daddy," she said, her reflection appearing in one of the mirrors. She giggled and darted around a corner, her laughter fading as she disappeared from view. Daniel quickened his pace, weaving through the maze of mirrors. "Emily?" he called, his voice louder now. There was no answer. Panic began to creep in as he searched the funhouse, his calls growing more urgent. "Emily, where are you?" The laughter and noise around him seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of his heart. He pushed past other carnival goers, his eyes scanning every corner, every reflection, and then he saw it, a single shoe lying on the floor near the exit. It was Emily's, the pink sneaker she had insisted on wearing. That night, Daniel picked it up, his hands trembling. "Emily," he shouted, his voice breaking. But she was gone. The police were called and the carnival was shut down as officers combed the area. They questioned everyone, carnival workers, visitors, even Daniel himself. But no one had seen anything. It was as if Emily had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The search expanded beyond Maplewood, but no trace of Emily was ever found. The funhouse became a symbol of heartbreak, its bright lights and laughter replaced by silence and sorrow. Daniel was consumed by guilt. He replayed the night over and over in his mind, wondering what he could have done differently. He stopped going to work, stopped talking to friends. His life became a blur of missing posters, police reports, and sleepless nights. The town mourned with him, but as the years passed, the world moved on. The carnival returned the following year, and the year after that. But Daniel never went back. He couldn't. Emily's room remained untouched, her toys and clothes frozen in time. Daniel clung to the hope that one day she would come home. But as the years stretched into a decade, that hope began to fade. And then one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. Daniel was driving home from the grocery store, the radio playing softly in the background. As he turned onto the highway, a billboard caught his eye. It was an advertisement for a new clothing brand, the kind of thing he would normally ignore. But the face on the billboard made him slam on the brakes, his heart stopping in his chest. It was Emily. Her hair was longer, her features more mature, but there was no mistaking it. The girl on the billboard was his daughter. Daniel sat there, staring up at the image, his mind racing. How was this possible? Where had she been all these years, and why was her face on a billboard? The questions swirled in his mind as he gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. For the first time in 10 years, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope. He didn't know what the billboard meant, but he was determined to find out. And this time, he wouldn't stop until he had the answers. Daniel sat in his car, staring at the billboard, as if it might disappear if he looked away. The girl's face was larger than life, her smile bright and carefree. She was modeling a dress, her hair styled in loose waves, her eyes sparkling with a confidence that felt both familiar and foreign. It was Emily, he was sure of it. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone, snapping a picture of the billboard. He zoomed in on her face, studying every detail, the shape of her nose, the curve of her lips, the small freckle just below her left eye. It was all there. But how? For 10 years, he had searched for her. He had followed every lead, no matter how small or improbable. He had spent countless nights staring at her photograph, wondering if she was still alive, if she was safe, if she even remembered him. And now, here she was, smiling down at him from a billboard like a ghost from the past. Daniel's mind raced. He needed answers, and he needed them now. The billboard was advertising a clothing brand called Lux & Co., with a tagline that read, "Where elegance meets you." At the bottom of the ad was a website and a social media handle. Daniel quickly typed the website into his phone, his fingers shaking. The site was sleek and modern, filled with images of models wearing high-end clothing. He scrolled through the homepage, searching for any mention of the girl on the billboard. Finally, he found her. Her name, according to the site, was Sophia Lane. She was listed as one of the brand's featured models, with a short bio that described her as a rising star in the fashion world. There was no mention of where she was from or how she had gotten into modeling. Daniel's heart sank. Sophia Lane. Was it possible that he was wrong? That this girl wasn't Emily, but someone who just happened to look like her? No. He refused to believe that. He clicked on her profile, which linked to her social media accounts. Her Instagram page was filled with photos of her at photo shoots, events, and exotic locations. In every picture, she looked happy, confident, and completely at ease in her glamorous new life. But as Daniel scrolled through her posts, he noticed something strange. There were no pictures of her family, no mentions of her childhood, no clues about where she had come from. It was as if her life had started the moment she became a model. Daniel spent the rest of the day digging. He searched for interviews, articles, anything that might give him more information about Sophia Lane. But the more he looked, the more questions he had. There were no records of her before she became a model. No high school yearbook photos, no childhood friends tagging her in old pictures, no trace of her life before Lux & Co. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. By the time the sun set, Daniel was more convinced than ever that Sophia Lane was Emily. But if that was true, then where had she been for the past 10 years, and why was she living under a different name? The next morning, Daniel called Lux & Co.'s headquarters. He was transferred to a receptionist who politely informed him that they couldn't give out personal information about their models. "Please," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I think she's my daughter. She's been missing for 10 years. I just need to talk to her." The receptionist hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir," she said finally. "I can't help you." Daniel hung up, frustration boiling inside him. He couldn't let this go. He wouldn't. That evening, he decided to take a different approach. He created a fake social media account and sent Sophia a direct message. "Hi, Sophia. I'm a huge fan of your work. I was wondering if you'll be at any upcoming events. I'd love to meet you in person." He didn't expect a response, but to his surprise, she replied within an hour. "Hi, thanks for the kind words. I'll be at the Lux & Co. charity gala this Friday in New York. Hope to see you there." Daniel's heart raced. This was his chance. The gala was being held at a luxury hotel in Manhattan, a world away from the quiet streets of Maplewood. Daniel arrived early, dressed in the only suit he owned. He felt out of place among the wealthy guests, but he didn't care. He was here for one reason: to see his daughter. The ballroom was dazzling, filled with crystal chandeliers, live music, and elegantly dressed attendees. Daniel scanned the crowd, his eyes searching for her, and then he saw her. She was standing near the stage talking to a group of people. She was even more beautiful in person, her smile lighting up the room. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was her. It was Emily. He started toward her, his heart pounding. But as he got closer, a man stepped in front of him. "Can I help?" "You?" the man asked, his tone polite but firm. "I need to talk to her," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "She's my daughter." The man's expression didn't change. "I'm sorry, sir. Miss Lane is very busy tonight. If you'd like to schedule a meeting, you can contact her agent." Daniel's frustration boiled over. "I don't need her agent. I need to talk to her now." The commotion drew Sophia's attention. She turned, her eyes meeting Daniel's. For a moment, time seemed to stop. "Emily," Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia frowned, confusion flickering across her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "Do I know you?" Daniel's heart shattered. "It's me," he said. "It's Dad." Sophia's expression didn't change. "I think you have the wrong person," she said, her tone polite but distant. Before Daniel could say anything else, the man stepped between them again. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't lose her again. "Please," he said, his voice breaking. "Just listen to me. You're my daughter. You're Emily Carter." Sophia's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I don't know who you are." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving Daniel standing there, his heart in pieces. As he was escorted out of the gala, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The way she had looked at him, the flicker of recognition in her eyes, it was there even if she wouldn't admit it. He didn't know what had happened to her, but he was more determined than ever to find out, because deep down, he knew the truth. That was his daughter, and someone had taken her life and turned it into a lie. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his small living room, the photo of Emily from the missing persons flyer in one hand and the picture of Sophia Lane from the Lux & Co. website on his laptop screen. They were the same person. He was sure of it. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the small freckle under her left eye, even the way she tilted her head slightly in photos. But her reaction at the gala haunted him. The way she had looked at him, confused, distant, and yet there had been something else, a flicker of recognition, quickly buried. Daniel leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. If she was Emily, why didn't she remember him? Or worse, why was she pretending not to? He opened his laptop again and began searching for more information about Sophia Lane. Her social media accounts were polished and professional, filled with glamorous photo shoots and promotional posts. But there was nothing personal, no family, no childhood memories, no clues about her life before she became a model. It was as if her life had started the moment she signed with Lux & Co. The next morning, Daniel decided to dig deeper. He called a private investigator he had worked with years ago during the early days of Emily's disappearance. The man, a grizzled veteran named Jack Monroe, had been one of the few people who truly believed in Daniel's determination to find his daughter. "Jack, it's Daniel Carter," he said when the call connected. There was a pause, then a gruff voice replied, "Daniel, it's been a while. What's going on?" "I think I found her," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "I think I found Emily." Jack was silent for a moment. "You're sure?" "I saw her, Jack. She's going by the name Sophia Lane. She's a model now, working for some big fashion brand. But it's her, I know it is." Jack sighed. "All right, send me everything you've got. Photos, links, anything. I'll look into it." "Thank you," Daniel said, relief flooding his voice. While Jack worked on his end, Daniel decided to follow up on his own lead, Lux & Co. He drove to their headquarters in Manhattan, a sleek glass building that towered over the bustling city. Streets. The receptionist at the front desk greeted him with a practiced smile. "Welcome to Lux & Co. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with someone about one of your models," Daniel said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Sophia Lane." The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't give out personal information about our employees. If you'd like to leave a message, I can pass it along to her agent." Daniel clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "Please, this is important. I think she's my daughter. She's been missing for 10 years. The receptionist's expression softened, but she shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir. I really can't help you." Defeated, Daniel left the building, but not before noticing the security cameras positioned at every corner. Lux & Co. was clearly a well-guarded fortress, and getting any information from them wouldn't be easy. That evening, Jack called with an update. "You were right," Jack said. "Sophia Lane doesn't exist. At least not before 5 years ago. There's no birth certificate, no school records, nothing. It's like she appeared out of thin air." Daniel's heart raced. "What about Lux & Co.? Did you find anything on them?" Jack hesitated. "That's where it gets interesting. Lux & Co. is owned by a holding company called Meridian Ventures, and Meridian Ventures has ties to some shady organizations. Human trafficking, illegal, adoptions, you name it." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Are you saying they took her?" "I'm saying it's a possibility," Jack said. "But if they did, they've covered their tracks well. This isn't some small-time operation. These people are powerful, and they don't like being exposed." Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "I don't care how powerful they are. I'm not stopping until I get her back." The next day, Daniel decided to confront Sophia directly. He found out through her social media that she would be attending a photo shoot at a studio in Brooklyn. He waited outside the building, his heart pounding as he watched the entrance. When she finally appeared, stepping out of a black SUV with a team of assistants and photographers, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. She looked so much like her mother. Her posture, her smile, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. "Emily," he called out, stepping forward. She turned, her eyes widening slightly when she saw him. But then her expression hardened, and she shook her head. "I told you, I don't know who you are." "Please," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "Just listen to me. You're my daughter. You're Emily Carter. Don't you remember? The carnival, the Ferris wheel, the fun house." "Stop," she said sharply, her voice trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." One of her assistants stepped between them. "Sir, you need to leave now." Daniel ignored him, his eyes locked on Sophia. "They did something to you, didn't they? They made you forget. But I know you're my daughter. I know it. Sophia's hands clenched into fists, and for a moment, Daniel thought she might say something. But then she turned and walked into the building, leaving him standing there, his heart shattered. That night, Daniel received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "You're in over your head." The message was short and chilling. "Stop looking for her. This is your only warning." Attached to the email was a photo of Daniel, taken outside the studio earlier that day. Daniel stared at the screen, his hands shaking. Whoever had sent the email was watching him. They knew what he was doing, and they wanted him to stop. But instead of scaring him off, the message only strengthened his resolve. They had taken his daughter. They had erased her memories, given her a new name, a new life. But deep down, she was still Emily, and Daniel would do whatever it took to bring her home. Daniel sat in his dimly lit living room, staring at the email on his laptop screen. The words burned into his mind. "Stop looking for her. This is your only warning." The photo of him outside the studio was proof that whoever had taken Emily, or Sophia, as they now called her, was watching his every move. But instead of fear, Daniel felt a surge of determination. They wanted him to stop, which meant he was getting close to something. He wasn't going to back down now. He forwarded the email to Jack, along with a message. "They're onto me. Can you trace this?" Jack replied within minutes. "I'll see what I can do. Be careful, Daniel. These people don't play around." Daniel closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Whoever had sent the email was trying to scare him, but they had underestimated just how far he was willing to go for his daughter. The next morning, Jack called with an update. "The email was sent through a proxy server," Jack said. "Whoever sent it knows what they're doing. I can't trace it back to the source." Daniel's heart sank. "So we're back to square one?" "Not exactly," Jack said. "I did some more digging on Lux & Co. and Meridian Ventures. There's a facility they own just outside the city, a private compound. It's listed as a training center for their models, but something about it doesn't add up. Security is tight, and there's no public access. If they're hiding something, it's probably there." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Do you have an address?" Jack hesitated. "Yeah, but listen to me, Daniel. If you're thinking about going there, you need to be careful. These people are dangerous. You can't just walk in and start asking questions." "I don't care how dangerous they are," Daniel said. "If there's even a chance Emily is there, I have to go." Jack sighed. "All right. I'll send you the address, but promise me you'll call if you need backup." "I will," Daniel said. Though he had no intention of waiting for help, the compound was located in a remote area, surrounded by dense woods and high fences. Daniel parked his car a mile away and approached on foot, using the trees for cover. As he got closer, he saw the compound was heavily guarded. Security cameras were mounted on the fences, and men in black uniforms patrolled the perimeter. Daniel crouched behind a tree, his heart pounding. He had no plan, no backup, and no idea what he was walking into, but he couldn't turn back now. He waited until one of the guards disappeared around a corner, then slipped through a gap in the fence. The compound was eerily quiet, the only sound the crunch of gravel beneath his feet. He made his way to the main building, a sleek, modern structure with tinted windows. He tried the door, but it was locked. Peering through the glass, he saw a long hallway lined with doors. Daniel's gaze fell on a security keypad next to the door. He had no way of knowing the code, but as he studied the keypad, he noticed faint smudges on a few of the buttons. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the buttons in sequence. 2, 5, 8, 0. The lock clicked and the door swung open. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, the walls painted a stark white. Daniel moved cautiously, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. He opened the first door he came to, finding a small office filled with filing cabinets and a desk. He rifled through the drawers, searching for anything that might give him a clue about Emily. In one of the drawers, he found a folder labeled Sophia Lane. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were documents detailing her modeling career, contracts, photo shoots, and schedules. But there was something else too, a psychological evaluation. Daniel scanned the report, his stomach twisting as he read the words. Subject exhibits signs of memory suppression, implantation of new identity successful, continued monitoring. Required. His blood ran cold. They had done something to her, erased her memories, given her a new identity. He flipped through the rest of the folder, finding a list of names. Most of them were unfamiliar, but one name stood out, Dr. Evelyn Marks. The name was listed under the heading Lead Psychologist. Daniel slipped the folder into his bag and continued down the hallway. He needed to find Dr. Marks. As he turned a corner, he heard voices coming from one of the rooms. He pressed himself against the wall, straining to listen. "Progress is satisfactory," a woman was saying. "She's fully integrated into her new life. There's no indication she remembers anything." Daniel's heart raced. Was she talking about Emily? Another voice replied, "This one male." "Good. We can't afford any mistakes. If she starts to remember, it could jeopardize everything." Daniel clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. These people had stolen his daughter, erased her memories, and turned her into someone else. He waited until the voices faded, then slipped into the room. It was a small lab, filled with monitors and medical equipment. On one of the screens was a live feed of a room. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was Emily. She was sitting on a couch, her expression calm but distant. She was wearing a simple dress, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. She was alive. Before he could move, a hand clamped down on his shoulder. "Who the hell are you?" a voice demanded. Daniel spun around, coming, face to face with a guard. Without thinking, he swung his fist, catching the man in the jaw. The guard stumbled back, but before Daniel could make a run for it, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed as the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. Daniel bolted, clutching the folder to his chest. He didn't know where he was going, but he had to get out. As he rounded a corner, he saw a door marked Exit. He burst through it, finding himself outside in the cool night air. He ran toward the fence, the sound of shouting behind him. He slipped through the gap and disappeared into the woods, his heart pounding. When he finally reached his car, he collapsed into the driver's seat, his hands shaking. He had found her. She was alive. But now he had to figure out how to get her back. Daniel sat in his car, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. His hands trembled as he clutched the folder he had taken from the compound. The image of Sophia, sitting on that couch was burned into his mind. She was alive, but she wasn't herself. They had taken her memories, her identity, her life. He couldn't leave her there. He wouldn't. But this wasn't something he could do alone. The compound was heavily guarded, and the people running it were clearly dangerous. He needed help. Daniel drove straight to Jack's office, a small, cluttered space above a pawn shop. Jack was sitting at his desk, a cigarette dangling from his lips when Daniel burst in. "Jack," Daniel said, his voice shaking. "I found her. She's there. She's alive." Jack's eyes widened. "You're sure?" Daniel dropped the folder. "On the desk. Look at this. They erased her memories, gave her a new identity. They're keeping her in that compound." Jack flipped through the documents, his expression growing darker with each page. "Jesus," he muttered. "This is worse than I thought." "We have to get her out," Daniel said. "I don't care what it takes." Jack leaned back in his chair, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "This isn't going to be easy, Daniel. These people are professionals. They've got security, cameras, guards. If we go in there without a plan, we're dead." "Then we make a plan," Daniel said. "Whatever it takes, Jack. I'm not leaving her there." Jack studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's do this." Over the next 2 days, Daniel and Jack worked tirelessly to prepare. Jack used his connections to gather intel on the compound. Security schedules, guard rotations, entry points. They mapped out every detail, knowing they would only get one chance. Jack also brought in a third person, a tech expert named Mia, who specialized in hacking and surveillance. She was young, sharp, and confident, and she quickly became an essential part of the plan. I can disable the cameras and jam their communications, Mia said, her fingers flying across her laptop. But it won't last long. You'll have about 20 minutes before they figure out something's wrong. That's all we need, Daniel said. The night of the rescue, Daniel's nerves were on edge. He sat in the back of Jack's van going over the plan one last time. Remember, Jack said, we get in, grab Emily and get out. No heroics, no detours. Stick to the plan. Daniel nodded, his jaw clenched. Let's do this. They parked the van a mile from the compound and approached on foot using the cover of darkness. Mia stayed in the van, monitoring the security feeds and guiding them through earpieces. Cameras are down, Mia said. You're clear to move. Daniel and Jack slipped through the gap in the fence and made their way to the main building. The compound was eerily quiet, the only sound the crunch of gravel beneath their boots. Guards are heading toward the east side, Mia said. You've got a clear path to the entrance. They reached the door, and Jack picked the lock in. Seconds. Inside, the hallway was just as Daniel remembered, cold, sterile, and silent. Room 12, Mia said. That's where she is. Daniel's heart pounded as they moved down the hallway. When they reached the door, Jack held up a hand, signaling for Daniel to wait. He pulled out a small device and attached it to the lock. Give me a second, Jack said. The lock clicked, and the door swung open. Emily was sitting on the couch just as Daniel had seen her in the video feed. She looked up, her expression confused. Who are you? She asked, her voice cautious. Daniel stepped forward, his heart breaking. Emily, it's me. It's Dad. She frowned, shaking her head. I don't know you. Yes, you do. Daniel said, his voice trembling. They made you forget, but I'm here to take you home. Emily stood, backing away. I don't understand. My name is Sophia. No, Daniel said, his voice firm. Your name is Emily Carter. You're my daughter. They took you from me 10 years ago. Tears filled his eyes as he pulled out the locket he had carried with him for years. He opened it, showing her the tiny photo inside, a picture of her as a child, smiling with her mother. Emily stared at the locket, her expression softening. I remember this, she whispered. That's right, Daniel said, stepping closer. You gave it to your mum for her birthday. You were so proud of it. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. I don't know what's real anymore. It's okay, Daniel said. I'm here now. I'm going to get you out of here. Before they could move, an alarm blared, and red lights flashed in the hallway. They know you're there, Mia said through the earpiece. You've got company coming your way. Jack pulled out his gun, motioning for Daniel and Emily to follow him. Let's move. They ran down the hallway, the sound of footsteps and shouting growing louder behind them. Take the stairs to your left, Mia said. It leads to an emergency exit. They burst through the door and into the stairwell, racing down to the ground floor. When they reached the exit, Jack kicked the door open and they ran into the night. The guards were close behind, their shouts echoing through the compound. Daniel and Emily sprinted toward the fence, Jack covering them with his gun. Over here! Mia's voice crackled in their earpieces. They reached the gap in the fence and slipped through just as the guards opened fire. Bullets whizzed past them, but they kept running, the van coming into view. Mia threw open the doors and they dove inside. Jack jumped into the driver's seat and floored the gas pedal, the van speeding away into the darkness. For the first time in 10 years, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. Emily was safe, sitting beside him in the van, her hand clutching the locket. She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. I don't remember everything, she said, but I remember you. Daniel smiled, his own tears falling. That's enough for now. As the van disappeared into the night, Daniel knew their fight wasn't over. The people who had taken Emily would come after them. But for now, she was safe, and he would do whatever it took to keep her that way.